This is your last chance. After this, there is no turning back. You take the blue pill. You buy a brand name bike, ride Shimano Ultegra, and believe whatever it is you want to believe. You take the red pill. You build your own bike, and I show you how deep this AliExpress rabbit hole goes. Remember, all I'm offering is my opinion, nothing more. Follow me.
Hello and welcome back, ladies and gents, to another rather mysterious
He's beginning to believe.
Trace Fellow production. My name, as always, is Neo. Is Luke. My name is Luke. Now, for many, many years, I was rocking a Shimano Tiagra 4700 10-speed group set on this very bike here. I'm still actually using the crank from that group set because the nice fancy crank I had on here, I've transplanted onto my new disc build video up here. Bing! But the reason I chose Shimano Tiagra, a 10-speed group set, over 105 or any other 11-speed one is the fact that it was cheap. Ultimately, I didn't have much money at the time, and Tiagra offered like 90% of the functionality for 2/3, if not close to half the cost of an equivalent 11-speed group set. In fact, my first foray into the world of 11-speed was with the Sensah Empire group set, and many of you probably know how that ended. So after that experience, I kept my eyes peeled for a decent budget 11-speed option, and some of you in the comments have noticed these funny looking shifters that I've had on my bike for the last few months. Now, they cost me about 60 quid, but at the time of filming this, you can pick up these very shifters for 45 quid, a pretty compelling deal, if you ask me. So let's check them out. Right, so here are the shifters, and first of all I want to talk about the overall design of these shifters. Now, a lot of people in the comments when they saw these had asked me why I'd gone back to kind of old school Shimano STI shifters from like the early 2000s, and in their defense they do look a lot like that. So only the brake cable itself comes out the back of the shifter and through the bar, and you've got the gear cables coming out of the side of the shifters here. They do bear more than a passing resemblance actually to my super old school Shimano Sora STI shifters, where you've got kind of the brake cable goes in the back and then the gear cable comes out of the side there. So they kind of do function in a similar manner, but these are not Shimano. Now, some of the cycle aficionados out there may be saying, well, these are clearly MicroShift shifters. MicroShift, for those that don't know, are a Taiwanese company that produce some really quality group sets actually. And these shifters here look basically identical to their R8 road shifters, but these are not MicroShift. Right, enough faffing about. Let me spin this around and I'll show you what these shifters actually are. So these shifters go by the name MicroNew. Now, presumably they're trying to be mistaken, maybe for MicroShift, but regardless, when I was researching these shifters, I actually found that MicroShift themselves have come out to say that these are not a legitimate MicroShift product, which is fair enough. But here's where it gets funny. MicroShift have this design and they use it for their R8, R9, and R10 speed shifters, so 8, 9, and 10 speed. These are an 11-speed shifter, and in order to get up to 11 speed with MicroShift, you need to go up to their more premium Centos or Arcis group sets. They don't actually produce an 11-speed shifter in this design, so it looks like MicroNew have just used this shifter and slapped an 11-speed mechanism inside it. Honestly, trying to figure out the lineage of these shifters was like diving down the AliExpress rabbit hole. But anyway, with that out of the way, let's take a really good look at these bad boys. Okay, so here is what these shifters look like fresh out of the box, and they look pretty decent, to be honest with you. The plastic hood caps here with the silver decals painted on do look and feel a little cheap, but overall I was really impressed for the price. They do feel nice in the hand, and you can tell the overall build quality is pretty decent, which did surprise me. In addition, the parts involved with actuating a shift, we'll get onto shifting performance in a second, but these parts are made of metal rather than the plastic we saw with the old Sensah shifter. Although I'm led to believe Sensah has now fixed this issue, and I have a set with the updated metal shifting arm in the mail actually, so I'll keep you posted on that front. Anyway, weight-wise, these shifters come in at 432 grams for the pair, which, to give you a point of comparison, 105 R7000 shifters come in at 500 grams for the pair. So not too bad really on the weight front. In terms of installation, these are honestly some of the easiest shifters I've installed on this bike. With only the brake cable coming out the back of the shifter, cabling through the bar was nice and easy, and running the gear cables out of each side really reduces the overall complication of the install. Also, in terms of installing or replacing the actual cables, it's so easy. The end of the brake cable sits in this little cup here, and the end of the gear cable sits inside this cup, which ratchets over when changing gears. So yeah, these shifters are a breeze to set up and maintain. Also, just quickly, if you're enjoying the video and you haven't already, if you could take a second to subscribe, that will be really wicked. Honestly, it helps me out loads. So yeah, thank you in advance, and let's crack on with the rest of the episode. Okay, so I wanted to take a second and demonstrate how these actually function, because it's kind of not like anything that I'd ever used before. So the brake lever has nothing to do with the shift. All this does is brake, and then you've got these two levers here for changing gears. So this is the shifter for the rear derailleur, and to go up the range and make it easier to pedal, you push this in, and then to go back down, you click that one. So you can do a big swing of the bottom lever and go up 3 gears, 1, 2, 3, and then down one at a time, like so, 1, 2, 3. Really, really simple. As for the shifter for the front derailleur here, same principle. So you move up into the big ring, like so, and then down into the small ring, like so. In terms of ergonomics, they're really, really nice to use actually. So they're really simple to use when you're on the hoods here. You can just use 2 fingers, up and down, super simple. And then when you're in the drops, it's just as easy to actuate a shift when you're in the drops. So in terms of ergonomics, these are actually surprisingly good. Right, okay, so far I have done about 740 miles, so around 1,200 kilometers on these shifters here. So not huge figures, but definitely enough to give them a fair shakedown, I think. And what can I say? They have been wicked. Now, considering I was swapping over to these shifters from the Sensah Empire group set, which failed me after like 4 weeks, yeah, my expectations for these things were lower than low, but yeah, what can I say? They've been really great. Also, the weather here in Cornwall, which is where I've moved to recently, has been dreadful over the last few weeks, so I haven't managed to get any recent footage of me using these shifters. But in lieu of that, please enjoy this dramatic recreation of some of the mileage I've put on these things. Alright, so I filmed this green screen bit because at the time I thought I'd lost like all the footage of me using these shifters, but now I'm sat here editing, I've actually found most of it. Anyway, in this stuff that I filmed over the summer, you should be able to see that in London I was always contending with quite a lot of traffic, and this really puts shifters through their paces, in my opinion. I'm in and out of the big chainring all the time, especially at the lights, and you need to be quick on the shifts. Missed shifts and dropped chains are a big no-no, and poorly performing shifters can actually be pretty dangerous when you have cars and buses everywhere. Basically, what I'm trying to say is that they performed really well, and I had absolutely no issues trusting these shifters in heavy London traffic. Anyway, I'm glad I actually found the footage, but yeah, let's get back to the show. Anyway, enough of that. Let's go over what I like about these shifters. So firstly, the shape of the shifter is really comfortable to hold. They look kind of ugly, you could say, but frankly, they ride really nicely and they feel nice and secure, especially when you're holding onto the tops and kind of tucking in to get a little bit more aero. Now, importantly, shifting feels wicked. It's nice and snappy and responsive on both the front and the rear derailleur. It's not quite as refined and smooth as shifting on Shimano, but it's still amazing. I've actually got a clip of me using these shifters on the rollers, so roll that clip. Right, so I've got the bike on the rollers here, just to give you some idea of how well these shifters work basically, and how nice and quick the shifts are. So I've got the 105 R7000 rear derailleur on at the back, so yeah, let's give it a go. So I'll drop a shift by clicking this button here, boom. Nice and quick at the back, nice quick shift, and one more time, boom. So super quick, super responsive. And also the gears are really nicely indexed at the back as well. So I'll jump up a few gears quickly. So there's 1, there's 2, I've jumped up 2, I'll jump up 3. Nice and easy. And if I want to dump out some gears at the back, say I'm in a bit of a sprint and I need to dump some gears out, 3 gears dumped out, 4, easy peasy. So basically, I just want to kind of demonstrate to you that the shifting on these shifters is honestly really, really excellent. So yeah, good stuff. Right, so I mentioned this on the rollers just now, but the indexing of this setup here is really, really consistent. It sounds like a funny thing to say, but when I had the Sensah Empire group set on here, I often found that the rear derailleur would creep in and out of alignment regardless of whether or not I touched the barrel adjuster. So it just wasn't consistent and was really annoying. But the indexing on this setup as I have it now, really solid. Now, I found that cheap shifters often rattle over bumps and cobbles. I mean, listen to this Sensah Empire shifter here. Yeah, you can hear the tolerances aren't super tight, but actually I've had no problems on that front with these shifters. They seem to be really well made, and they are dead silent over kind of bumps and cobbles. Really, really impressive. Now, coming over to these MicroNew shifters from Sensah Empire, the thing that I'd realized I had actually missed was the ability to drop from the big chainring to the small chainring in one click of the shifter. I found this really useful, especially in traffic, because you often need to come to quite a quick stop, and the ability to kind of drop into a much lower gear at a moment's notice is really, really useful for pulling away. On Sensah Empire, you needed to click the front shifter twice, so go click, click in order to drop down into the smaller chainring. I found that really frustrating actually. So the ability to just click these shifters once and drop it into the small chainring, bueno. Right, one other aspect that I want to highlight about these shifters is actually the quality of the rubber they chose for the hoods, because it is actually really nice. If I show you the Sensah Empire one to compare, this shifter has done a similar amount of mileage, but the rubber is just loose and it feels like it's peeling off. It just doesn't scream quality, and I've heard a lot of people complain actually about the rubber that they chose to fit these hoods with. Yeah, just not very good, and you can feel it. It doesn't feel very nice. Conversely, the rubber on these basically looks as good as the day I put them on. I mean, it's not peeling. It's still nice and taut on both of the shifters. Honestly, it feels really wicked. This is a component that the cheap shifters often cheap out on, but in this instance, the rubber, really, really good quality. Definitely a plus point for these bad boys. Now, because the method by which you change gear is so different, and it's not like anything else I've ever used before, so you've got the brake lever and then 2 other levers on each shifter to change up and down, it does take a ride or 2 to build the muscle memory to kind of shift reliably. But once you've done that, you're flying basically. Aside from that, there's one slight, I'm not sure I'd call it a problem, like a quirk. So when you change up from the small chainring to the big chainring, you can feel the shifter click through 2 trim positions on the way up. But occasionally, when I've pushed a little bit too hard, it's clicked into a 3rd trim position. It's an intermittent problem, doesn't happen every time, and kind of doesn't feel like it was designed to do that. It hasn't really caused any problems. I've not had any chain drops or anything like that. But it's kind of indicative of the fact that maybe the shifter mechanism inside it isn't as precisely manufactured as, say, something from the likes of Shimano. So after being kind of burnt a little bit, I guess, on Sensah Empire, I was ready for these shifters to give up the ghost after a day or 2, but they kept impressing me ride after ride. And apart from the occasional 3rd click on the front, which, like I said, didn't actually cause any problems, I've had 0 malfunctions with these shifters and nearly perfect shifting, to be honest with you. So yeah, I am as surprised as you are, trust me. So in terms of compatibility, I have paired these shifters up with a full Shimano drivetrain, really. So we've got a Tiagra 4700 front derailleur, works great. And then at the back, I've paired it with a 105 R7000 rear derailleur, which is really high quality actually. And in all honesty, this rear derailleur choice has probably contributed to keeping the shifts at the back nice and crisp. In fact, because I've been so impressed with these MicroNew shifters here, recently I went ahead and bought the MicroNew 11-speed rear derailleur here. Look at this beautiful piece. And what can I say about this? It is hot and spicy garbage. It is without a doubt the worst rear derailleur I have ever laid my hands on by a very wide margin. Okay, here is the offending item, and you should see there, MicroNew 11 speed. And yeah, you should be able to tell right off the bat, this is not a quality product. I mean, look at this honking piece of plastic here. Yeah, just nothing about this screams quality. And everything is pinned or riveted together. There's very little use of kind of screws to keep things connected. I mean, the jockey wheels, they're not replaceable. Not that this thing would last long enough for you to warrant having to replace them, I assume, but that option is not there. I mean, check this out as well. This pin here, look at the slop in that pin there. That there is the difference between a gear being indexed and not indexed. And that's just on this one pin. Imagine that over all of these other connection points here. And you should get a sense that the tolerances of production on this thing are really, really low, which leads to terrible quality shifting. I couldn't get it to index properly. It kept jumping between gears, especially towards the kind of lower ranges of the cassette. Nothing was consistent. This is just a terrible product. I've got a clip here actually of it on the bike and me trying to get it to index properly. So let's have a look at that quickly. Right, cool. So I've just spent the last hour basically trying to get this derailleur to index properly and shift well. And this is the best I can do. So I'll jump down the range, one click on the shifter, so one gear at a time, but you'll see that it keeps jumping a load of them. So let's go. There, didn't jump one, it just sat on the top one. Let's jump two there. Jump one, but it's not indexed properly. It's just jump two. And then we get to the bottom of the range. Still a click left in the shifter. It's basically terrible. I can't get it to work. Avoid this thing. It's absolute trash. Now, I can't actually speak to the front derailleur that MicroNew offers, but if it's anything like this absolute monstrosity here, which I very much suspect it will be. Oh, yeah, that's just fallen out. Yeah, then just don't go there. Trust me, it's not worth it. So, in conclusion, these shifters have completely exceeded my expectations. They're honestly quite good. Now, they aren't as good as 105 R7000. They don't look as good, and they don't shift quite as smoothly. But if Shimano 105 was a 10, these are easily an 8.5 or a 9. Now, there are a few things to consider. One of which is the sample size for today's video, and that sample size is this guy right here. So yeah, if you do end up buying these, I may have got lucky with these pair of shifters. I mean, with these cheaper products, things like quality control kind of are non-existent really. So if you do get them, there's no guarantee that you'll get the same kind of decent shifters that I got. One other thing as well is the fact that I highly recommend pairing these shifters up with a really good rear derailleur. 105 R7000 if you can kind of afford it. And you know, depending on where you buy that could cost basically as much as both of these shifters. So yeah, something to consider. But if you are looking to upgrade to an 11-speed setup, maybe you're currently on an 8 or a 9-speed group set like a Claris or a Sora at the moment, and you can't quite stomach the cost of a new 11-speed group set, then these shifters, they're probably worth a look, in my opinion. Anywho, that is all that we've got time for in this little episode of Trace Bello. So yeah, subscribe if you like this kind of stuff. Hit the like button if you enjoyed this video. And if you got any questions or any comments about these cheap shifters here, or cheap shifters in general, then do leave me a comment down below and I'll try to get back to as many of you as I can. Anyway, that is it. So I'll see you all. I'm gonna do a spin. That was great. In the next episode. Ciao, ciao.